Children of the Sunflower, Part 1. Winds of a New Beginning. It was a beautiful, sunny day in the small town of Newbark. The grass was a vibrant green, and the sea to the east sparkled a beautiful, deep blue. A small house bathed in the golden light of the sun as its rays pierced an upstairs window. Inside, the beam reflected off a television screen, right into a young boy's eyes. He tried to cover his face in his sleepy state, but then his brain woke up and he remembered what day it was.
I get my Pokemon today!
Popping out of bed, the boy hurriedly dressed and rushed downstairs where he found his mom waiting.
Good morning, Haruto. I see you've gotten up all on your own for once. Can't imagine why that might be.
Haruto rolled his eyes.
You should brush your hair, though. You look like you just got out of bed.
I did just get out of bed.
That is no reason to go around town looking like it.
Haruto sighed.
Okay.
He started to march back to the stairs to go up and get a hairbrush.
And when you're done, you can come have some breakfast.
But Mom...
You don't want to start your journey as a Pokemon trainer on an empty stomach.
Fine.
But wait, that's not right, is it? The sky was dark. The nearly black clouds covered the entire sky and cast a gloomy shadow over the small town of Newbark. Strong winds were bending trees and causing waves in the sea to the east. Water splashed over the grass and even reached a small house that did not sit very far from the sea. Lightning flashed, and the accompanying crash of thunder startled a young girl awake in an upstairs bedroom of that house. Her heart racing, the girl looked around the dark room, slightly confused about the lack of light.
Is today the day I get my Pokemon?
Uncertain if it was actually day, the girl slowly got out of bed, dressed, and headed downstairs where her mom was waiting.
Morning, Hanako. Guess the storm woke you up. The way you sleep, I'm kind of surprised that even did the trick.
Hanako rolled her eyes.
You should go up and brush your hair. It's the big day today.
Can I have breakfast first?
Why don't you go grab the brush and I'll help you out while you eat?
The girl nodded.
Okay.
She started for the stairs but stopped when her mom spoke again.
You should bring down your bag, too.
But it isn't packed.
Well, then you'll need to do that, too, before you can come have breakfast.
Fine.
A few minutes later, Haruto was back downstairs. His hair still a little tangled, but better than it had been. After taking a seat, he started scarfing down his breakfast, and his mother swooped in behind him to brush out the rest of his green hair.
Ow!
Hold still.
I'm trying.
Not hard enough.
I can't with you pulling so hard.
Well, if you had done it properly, I wouldn't have to be doing it now.
She stopped and looked down at her son's hair.
Are you sure you'd want me to cut it shorter before you head out?
Mom!
All right. I just thought it would make things easier.
Hair fully brushed and breakfast consumed, Haruto was enduring a long hug just outside the front door in the fresh summer breeze.
I'm going to miss you.
Me too, Mom, but I'll visit.
And call. Don't forget to call.
Of course.
All right, then.
Haruto's mother held his shoulders and looked down at her boy. Her eyes were glistening with tears she was working to hold back.
I love you, Haruto.
Love you too, Mom.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Finally released, Haruto started off on a not-so-long journey toward the lab of Professor Elm. He looked back and saw his mom still standing outside the door watching him go. She waved, and he waved back. And once he reached the door, he looked back one more time and was pretty sure he saw her still there.
At least she didn't try to walk me over here,
he said to himself. Then he entered the lab. A few minutes later, Hanako was back downstairs with a hairbrush and a hastily packed bag with items spilling out of it. She tossed the bag onto a chair and then sat at the table to begin eating. Her mother shook her head as she took position behind her daughter to brush her pink hair.
What?
Your bag.
What about it?
It isn't packed very well, is it?
Well, I was in a little bit of a hurry.
You wouldn't have been if you had packed it last night when I told you.
She sighed.
I thought you were going to be more excited about today.
I am excited.
If you say so. We'll finish up and then get your bag packed properly, all right?
Breakfast consumed, hair done, and bag actually packed, Hanako stood at the open front door, staring at the pouring rain.
You might want this umbrella, too.
Yeah, I think I might. Thank you.
You'll stop by sometimes, right? And call?
Of course, Mom.
I'll miss you, sweetheart.
Hanako's mother placed a hand on her daughter's cheek. Her eyes glistened with barely contained tears.
Good luck, Hanako.
Thanks.
I love you.
I love you too, Mom.
Popping the umbrella up, Hanako stepped into the stormy weather outside. Professor Elm's lab wasn't far at all, but it felt like an entire journey in that weather. Hanako gave her mom a wave and plunged forward, doing her best to deflect the angled rain from pelting her along the way. Once she reached the door to the lab, she glanced back toward the home she had grown up in and found it blurred by the rain.
This is some day to start,
She said to herself. Then she entered the lab.
Ah, welcome. I'm glad you made it.
Professor Elm said excitedly as the child walked into his lab. A few steps in, and Haruto's foot slipped a little on a small puddle on the floor. Regaining his footing quickly, he finished approaching the table where Professor Elm had set up 3 Pokeballs. Hanako shook off the umbrella as best she could and closed it up before entering too far into the lab. She leaned the dripping contraption against a counter as she approached the table where Professor Elm had set up 3 Pokeballs.
All right, let's begin.
Professor Elm said. He peered over his glasses at the newly arrived trainer and didn't say anything else for half a minute. He almost seemed to be staring straight through the poor child.
So we have 3 choices laid out in front of you. There is Chikorita.
Elm said, pointing at the first Pokeball. When he pointed to the next one, he said,
Then there's Cyndaquil. And finally, we have Totodile.
The professor clapped his hands together.
Which one will it be?
The new trainer stepped forward and looked at each Pokeball very closely. A sudden movement off to the left caught the kid's eye, but a glance upward revealed only a bunch of random lab equipment and a window on the wall. Turning attention back to the table, the new trainer hummed in thought, trying hard to make a final decision. They all seemed like interesting Pokemon. Finally coming to a conclusion, a hand reached up toward one of the balls, and Haruto said,
I choose Chikorita.
Haruto's hand closed around the first Pokeball and he plucked it up. Hanako's hand hovered over the Pokeball for a moment and then drifted over to the second ball. She couldn't tell if it had done it on its own or if she had subconsciously done it as she had second thoughts about going for Chikorita. Then she grabbed the middle ball and said,
Cyndaquil. I choose Cyndaquil.
Haruto looked down at his hand holding the Pokeball and then his gaze drifted over to the one housing Cyndaquil. He could have sworn he felt something brushed against his arm. It was almost as if something was pulling him toward a different choice.
Would it be okay if I changed my mind?
Change your mind?
Elm asked.
As in, you want a different Pokemon?
I think, no, never mind. Figured I said anything.
The professor gave Haruto a quizzical stare. After a moment, he shrugged and turned to grab something.
All right, miss. Now that you've chosen your Chikorita, I have just a few Pokeballs to hand over to you, and this.
Elm turned back around and handed over a Pokedex.
As you catch more Pokemon, it will fill out details of the various creatures which will help in my research. It should also have all your details listed in there, which you can find if you just push this button here.
The screen the professor pulled up displayed the various badges found in the Johto region, as well as information about Haruto, such as his name and hometown. Just as he was glancing over the image of himself, a reflection of sunlight cast a glare over the screen. Something about the picture seemed off, and he quickly readjusted his view so he could get a better look. Turned out there was nothing odd about it at all, but he could have sworn, for just a moment, his hair had been pink. A loud crash outside the far window distracted Haruto from his confusion. He quickly turned to look to see what had made the noise, and... was it just because he had been thinking it before? But did he just see something pink duck away out of sight?
Did you see that?
Haruto asked Elm.
Maybe. I think there might be someone outside spying on my research.
That answer sounded strange to Haruto. What could a Pokemon professor be researching that a spy would be interested in?
Take your Cyndaquil and head out the front. I'll take the back way and we'll see if we can't corner whoever's out there.
Haruto nodded and did as Elm said. Moving cautiously, the boy slipped out the front door, his foot sinking slightly in the damp soil right outside. Staying on tiptoes, he creeped along the edge of the building, through dry, tall grass, and peeked around the corner. There were some large boxes stacked along outside. One of them was tipped over on the ground, spilling out mostly old and damaged-looking equipment. That must have been what made the noise. There was some more movement near the boxes, and Haruto knew the spy must still be hiding there, waiting to do some more spying. Haruto inched closer, 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 and then jumped out and shouted at the lurker. Elm leapt into the air, screamed, and crashed into one of the stacks of boxes, knocking even more over.
Oops, sorry, Professor.
Elm waved it off.
No, it's okay. I should have let you know that I was back there. I was just picking up some strands of hair, as it likely belongs to whoever was spying.
He lifted the few strands, and Haruto could see clearly in the bright sun that he had been right. He had seen something pink outside the window.
Are you sure?
Professor Elm asked, looking at the trainer. Hanako looked at her hand and then back to the Pokeball with Chikorita in it, and then back to the Pokeball with Cyndaquil she was holding. Something felt off about what had happened. She very nearly chose Chikorita, and she didn't know why.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Why?
Elm stared at the Chikorita ball quizzically.
I'm not sure. I just, for some reason, thought you were going to pick the grass type. Maybe it's just because of your name being plant-related.
Hanako nodded slowly.
Yeah, that could be.
The professor shrugged and turned away to grab something.
All right, mister. Now that you've chosen Cyndaquil, I have just a few Pokeballs to hand over to you. And this.
Elm turned back around and handed over a Pokedex.
As you catch more Pokemon, it will fill out details of the various creatures, which will help in my research. It should also have all your details listed in there, which you can find if you just push this button here.
The screen the professor pulled up displayed the various badges found in the Johto region, as well as information about Hanako, such as her name and hometown. Just as she was glancing over the image of herself, the lights in the lab flickered and the screen of the Pokedex fuzzed out for a second. Something about the picture seemed off, and she quickly readjusted her view so she could get a better look. Turned out there was nothing odd about it at all, but she could have sworn, for just a moment, her hair had been green. A crash of thunder rocked the lab, accompanied by a flash of lightning, and, in that moment, Hanako thought she saw something outside the window. It might have been a trick of the light, or maybe it had been her mind dwelling on what she had just thought she saw in the Pokedex. But she thought she had just seen someone with green hair out there.
Did you see that?
Hanako asked Elm.
Maybe. I think there might be someone outside spying on my research.
That answer sounded strange to Hanako. What could a Pokemon professor be researching that makes someone willing to stand out in that storm just to get a glimpse?
Take your Chikorita and head out the front. I'll take the back way and we'll see if we can't corner whoever is out there.
Hanako raised an eyebrow. She wasn't feeling very inclined to go out in the pouring rain just to run into someone potentially dangerous. But she was also intrigued, and so she hurried outside, the warm, dry grass tickling her ankles as she did. Not wanting to spend too much time getting soaked and afraid the spy would get away, she hurried around the corner, each step sinking into the mud, and found nothing. Well, not nothing. There were a stack of boxes out there. There just wasn't a person. However, there were footprints. Comparing the prints to her own feet, she discovered that if it was an adult, then they had very small feet. Chances were more likely that it was someone closer to her own age. Suddenly, a stack of boxes nearby crashed down as a tall figure in white appeared. Hanako screamed.
Oops.
Elm said.
Sorry, miss.
Hanako clutched her chest, heart beating fast.
No, it's okay, Professor. I just thought maybe you were the spy, coming to attack for just a second there. But look, I found some footprints they left behind.
She pointed down at the ground, and just at the moment, the whole area lit up with a flash of lightning. It made it much easier to see that the footprints were not just close to Hanako's size, but that they were nearly identical. Glancing up, Haruto saw someone through the window. There was a girl with pink hair walking up toward the table where Professor Elm had placed the 3 Pokeballs.
Hey, Professor, look. I think the spy's stuck inside.
Haruto turned to look at the professor, but he wasn't there.
Professor?
The boy turned back toward the window and saw that Elm was already inside and was speaking with the pink-haired girl.
What the?
Inside, Professor Elm was handing something to the girl that Haruto had thought was a spy. The lights inside flickered, and the girl turned toward the window. Something wet landed in Haruto's hair, and then just as the girl was about to see him standing outside the window, she was gone.
Haruto? Haruto?
The boy blinked and shook his head. Glancing over, he found Professor Elm standing beside him with a concerned expression.
Are you okay, Haruto?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Professor Elm didn't look entirely convinced, but he didn't press the matter.
Very well. I have a favor to ask of you. Let's head back inside so I can get the case.
Sure, okay.
Haruto followed the professor back inside. The boy's foot splashed through a puddle as they headed toward the back of the lab where Professor Elm started rummaging around his disorganized desks, clearly in search of something. Glancing up, Hanako spotted someone through the window. There was a boy with green hair walking up toward the table where Professor Elm had placed the 3 Pokeballs.
Professor? I think the spy snuck inside.
Hanako turned to look at the professor, but he wasn't there.
Professor?
The girl turned back toward the window and saw that Elm was already inside and was speaking with the green-haired boy.
What in the...
Inside, Professor Elm was handing something to the boy that Hanako had thought was a spy. Light flashed off of it into the boy's face, and then he turned toward the window. The sound of tapping rain on Hanako's umbrella suddenly ceased. Then, just as the boy was about to see her standing outside the window, he was gone.
Hanako? Hanako?
The constant tap of rain on the umbrella thundered back into existence. Hanako looked to see who had said her name and found Professor Elm beside her, wearing a concerned expression.
Are you okay, Hanako?
What? Oh, I think so.
Professor Elm didn't look entirely convinced, but he didn't press the matter.
Very well. I have a favor to ask of you. Let's head back inside out of this storm first.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Hanako followed the professor back inside. She shook off the umbrella and closed it up as they walked toward the back of the lab. There, Professor Elm started rummaging around his disorganized desks, clearly in search of something.
Ah, here it is.
Elm turned around holding a strange, oblong container made mostly of glass.
I need you to visit Mr. Pokemon. He has made a discovery, and I want it brought back here so I can study it.
The professor handed the container to the young trainer standing before him.
You'll put it inside this case to keep it safe. Do you know where to find Mr. Pokemon?
The blank stare of the young trainer told Elm that the answer was no.
He lives in a small house just north of Cherry Grove City. Just head there, pick up the discovery, and bring it back in one piece. Think you can handle that?
The nod Elm was given was all the professor needed, and so, before the trainer even left, Elm delved deep into his work again. As Haruto started for the door, he noticed that something had changed. First was that there was no longer a puddle on the ground. But the second, and more important detail, was that the table where there had been 3 Pokeballs now only held 1. The boy glanced back to Elm and thought about asking him where the other Pokeball had gone. But, seeing him so engrossed in his work, he felt it would be better to leave him to it. So Haruto headed out the front door, ready to make his way to Cherry Grove City. As Hanako started for the door, she noticed that something had changed. First, there was now a puddle on the ground, near where she had rested her umbrella before. But the second and more important detail was that the table where there had been 3 Pokeballs now only held 1. The girl glanced back to Elm and thought about letting him know about the missing Pokeball. But, seeing him so engrossed in his work, she felt it would be better to leave him to it. So, Hanako headed out the front door, ready to make her way to Cherry Grove City. To be continued.